Hey, this is a special weekend episode of Coffee with Chuck. And after hours, I got the hoodie on, but I still have my coffee. And if you can see it, there we go. And we've got a special guest from Austin, Texas. His name is Ryan Todd, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what he does, but it's really cool. And then we have a student from McPherson High School, a senior, Courtney Eichbush, who's really interested in what Ryan does. And so I'm going to be a fly on the wall, and you're going to join us as we kind of hear what is happening on this episode of Coffee with Chuck.
You need like a cool formal like coffee cup. I feel
Yeah.
like that was a huge, nice presentation for like a blank. There you go. See, you had it backwards.
I had it in the
so
wrong hand.
So it was like nothing on the other side. It was just like, that's really like, it undersells it. You need a more presentation.
Well,
there.
you know, it's a laid back episode.
Oh yeah, that's the informal
right?
side,
I mean,
right?
It's the hoodie episode. So anyway, Ryan Todd, you're joining us from Austin, Texas, but you are from Augusta. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do now, and then I'm going to turn it over to Courtney, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself, how she got interested in graphic arts and animation, and then I'm just going to let you two kind of talk.
Sure. So born and raised in the Wichita area. So from Augusta, I lived in Augusta, Wichita area I graduated from Augusta in 99. And then I went to Friends University, got a degree at Friends, and then I moved out to San Francisco, and I was out there for a couple of years for school. Then I got a job in Wichita, working on feature film stuff, which was kind of a neat experience, and kind of hopped around for a couple of different places and helped start a college, like a 3D arts program there. And then the market kind of dried up, so I moved on. We moved to Kansas City. I worked for a production company there for a couple of years before they actually went out of business. And I decided that I wanted to get into video games. So I was a 3D artist through all of this. My focus was always, even in school, was character art and character modeling, but I never really considered video games. I always thought commercial, feature film, stuff like that. But decided it was time to maybe make the switch, because I didn't want to move. We knew we were going to have to relocate, but I didn't want to have to move to California. Like Atlanta, Georgia, are the big hubs for film here in the States. And then after that, you're Vancouver or the UK or Australia, and we just didn't want to make a move that far. And so looking at video games, there's a huge hub for video games here in the Austin area. There's probably a dozen or more AAA game companies here, not to mention indie companies and VR companies and everything. So that was probably what made one of our major decisions. I mean, it was a fun transition to me, and I'm glad I made it. It's very fulfilling. But the fact that if something were to happen at the job that I'm at and I needed to find a different position, we wouldn't have to necessarily relocate again, because there's a lot more options for what I do here. So now I am a 3D character artist at Blue Point Games. I've been there for, this April will be 3 years. And I started there when we started the video game Demon's Souls, which was the release title for the PlayStation 5. The first console games to release solely for the PlayStation 5. And that released in December. So, yep. And that's me.
We have one, a PlayStation 5, a Christmas.
Oh, do you?
It's in our house. I have never played it. I'm familiar with Madden football. Okay. That's the extent of my gaming. But Courtney, What tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in graphic arts, maybe animation, and some of the things that possibly Ryan does.
Well, the beginning of my freshman year, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I did know I enjoyed drawing a lot and I wanted that to be a career for me, but I didn't know how that can be interpreted into a career until I did a class where it introduced you to different things each month. So one month you would do carpentry, the next month you would do welding, the next would be CAD, and so on. So that's what I did. And when I did CAD, I realized I really enjoyed it. I liked how you can turn your own drawings into something either 2D or 3D. And it was just really cool. So I kept continuing that, and I'm still doing it for my senior year too. And yeah, I just really thought it was cool how I can turn my drawings into something more than just a sketch.
Hmm.
So
So, any questions for Ryan about next steps, or maybe how he decided to go pursue what he did?
yeah, I want to know how someone who's trying to get into either animation or illustrating, where can I start to do that?
Um, so our field is a very interesting field, right? Because if you're a good kind of self-motivated self-learner, you do not have to go to college for this career, right? Um, but that being said, it is nice. College gives you access maybe to softwares. It gives you access to people who really know what they're doing. It gives you access to people who maybe have an eye for what good art looks like. And so it kind of helps train you to develop those things. Um, but, and like for me, when I got into it, right? So this was 2004. I went to the Academy of Art in San Francisco. And I have a bachelor's from Friends, a bachelor's from the Academy, and then a master's from the Academy. I have a master's in digital sculpture, and that the master's is a great tool or a great something to have, but it was almost more for it allows me to teach as an option, right? So I teach for Bethany College in Lynchburg, Kansas, um, and at one point in my career, I was teaching for them full time. And having a master's allowed me to teach more than 2 classes at a semester because some schools require that they want the majority of their faculty or their teachers to have a master's. And so having a master's allows you to teach more. And so that's what a lot of that was there for, but you don't have to have it, right? YouTube, uh, there's in some instances with our field, right, you get what you pay for, right? So when you get free, sometimes you get garbage and you have to sift through it. So YouTube can be a fantastic resource, and there is a lot of really good stuff out there, but you have to be careful. But there's also a lot of not so good stuff out there, and you just want to be careful like what you're using for your foundational resources, right? But as a student, Autodesk, so if you're wanting to get into 3D, Maya is a really good software. It's Autodesk Maya. Blender, which is a free open source 3D application. Autodesk, right? So Autodesk, I believe if you have a student email address or a school email address, that you can get Autodesk software for free. So they allow students and faculty to train on their software, and that you get like a year or a 3-year license when you sign up for that. And Maya is basically industry standard software for film and video game. Photoshop, I think that as a student, I think you can get it for like $9 a month, right? So if you're trying to get into these things, using Maya, that if you can get it set up for free, using Photoshop that you can get for super cheap, and then starting with something like YouTube, right? You can really kind of get in there and play with the things that you like, right? So if you like CAD, all right. So our industry, when I went into 3D, right, I just said, okay, I want to go into 3D animation, but I didn't know what that term entailed, right? I was like, I want to go into 3D. At the time, 2000 or 99, I think, was when the first Toy Story came out, right? Or maybe it was 94, somewhere in there. And we've come a long way since then. But at that time, there really wasn't a ton of college education out there, and there definitely wasn't YouTube and easy access on the internet for good learning resources. Now you have a lot. But now we also know that there's a wide array of positions, for artists, right? So we have illustrators, we have concept artists, right? If you want to get into drawing, you have 3D modelers that are character artists, that are prop artists, that are what we would refer to as like a layout or a design artist. So if someone gives you a level for video games or a world for film, and it's just a kind of a blocked in, this is what we want it to look like, and then you collect assets from other artists and you use it to build a scene with, right? There's people who they just focus on the lighting side of things. There's people who just do animation. And for those of us that do modeling, our models are basically a digital sculpture until someone called a rigger goes in and applies bones and potentially muscles, potentially like cloth simulations or hair simulations to a character to bring them to life. And technical artists who handle effects and kind of the technical side of what needs to happen within a project. And so there's a wide array of things that somebody can kind of like fall into, whether you're more of the technical side or more of the creative side, whether you're more of the 2D side or more of the 3D side. All right. And then different things if you're going into game or going into film. So when you're doing these things, when you're looking at your education, right, you kind of have to start with what you like, right? So start with, if it's drawing, if it's getting things into 3D, then, start with something like Maya, find some intro to Maya training and find if you like that. All right. And then when you find what you enjoy, then start investing in a little bit more paid for education online, right? There are websites out there that you can do training, sites like Cube Brush, CUBEBRUSH, Cube Brush, or Udemy, or CGMA. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're actually like 8-week classes with a teacher, and it's more of like an industry professional. But depending on where you are, you can start free or start going into more paid for stuff once you kind of start whittling down your interests. Instead of having like the large category, you've kind of like, okay, I like illustration, and so now you're going the illustration path. Start looking at small paid for things there.
You mentioned that you taught a class at Bethany, or you're teaching a class at Bethany. So I assume that's online since you're in Austin. Are there other colleges, universities that offer online courses like that? Then, and I don't know, Courtney, I think you're evaluating what you're going to do after your senior year and where you're going to go. But is Bethany unique, or are there other institutions that would offer similar courses to what you're teaching?
So I helped,
Brian,
so I helped form the Bethany program back in like January 2012, I believe it was when so Bethany actually had a branch in Wichita that was their digital media program. and they did sound, they did film, they did animation and games. It's kind of what they grew into. And then at some point they just decided to go back to Bethany. And so they actually everything is on campus. And so I teach remotely for them, but all of the students are still on campus. Okay. So we still have they still have a full class. The students sit down at a computer and then they remote into me. And the reason why they do that is because we still want students learning from each other, right? We still want students to be able to ask each other questions or to show each other their work and get, peer feedback and stuff. And, I think that's a good way for students to get better, especially when they don't always think they have access to me, no matter how much I tell them to reach out to me. I think it's easier to just be like, hey, can you, you're really good at this. Can you help me figure this out? Than approaching, an industry professional, right? I think sometimes they get a little bit timid showing me work. But so we have a program, Wichita State now has a program, which a good friend of mine teaches at. Actually, a couple of my friends teach at. A guy I used to work with also, he teaches there. So I think they have a pretty good growing program. I think Johnson County Community College has a pretty good program. I know Hutch JUCO, one of my old students, she teaches there. And I think a lot of their students actually feed into Bethany to continue their education after they finish their associates. So if you're wanting to stay local, I think those are good programs. If you're really super serious and you're really super talented, and you have the income to do it, an art school, is a good thing. And I think a good art school offers opportunity to help get you job, if you're really good, right, and work really hard. I think there's opportunities for getting internships. I actually work with a girl at Blue Point that she's from Andover. She was in Andover, moved to Texas, and then went to school at Savannah College of Art and Design in Georgia. I think she actually went out there. I don't think it was remote, but she went there, and then she managed to get an intern with us like her junior year, I think, and then she was offered a full-time job and she stayed, and then she just finished her schooling online. But this is like my dream job, and I could see being here for my career. And she gets it right. I'm 40 now, and I got this job 3 years ago, my dream job. So it took me a long time, a lot of hard work and late nights getting here. And she gets it like as a sophomore or junior in college, which is really like upsetting. I give her crud about it all the time. But it offers, opportunities. And so it just kind of depends, where you want to go, what you want to do, what your commitments are to this. So.
You brought up about Blender. I actually am using that on my computer, and Paint. That's what I did for some of my designs because it's all I can really do right now. I mostly been self-teaching myself and using what I can. So I actually was doing one of my designs for a song called Rocket Girl by Betty Who. I had an image whenever I hear that song, and I wanted to draw it all out. I did it right away, and sometimes I would keep replaying the song so I can keep it there, and I'll just draw. But that's something I've been trying to work on until I got busy.
Do you draw on paper or do you draw on the computer?
I first do it on paper, and then I put it onto the computer.
Okay. Do you use a mouse or do you use a tablet?
I actually use those pens because I have a Microsoft Surface computer that I bought with the money.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just, these are super pricey, but I just got one of these. Yeah. So I can't show you. So I have a big setup here. I've got 5 monitors and a television here, like 3 monitors, well, 2 monitors in my drawing surface for my personal, and then 2, but I have one of the giant, like 27-inch, it's a monitor that you can draw on that lays flat. Like it will click and lay out flat and sit back up, and I draw on that. But this one right here that I showed you, it's like a giant tablet. It does a whole bunch, has a whole bunch of pressure sensitivity and stuff on it. So it's designed for drawing, but it also does sculpting. But I can unplug it and take it as like a laptop and go do art in bed and hang out like with my wife or kids or something. But then I can bring it to my desktop and plug it in, and it acts as a third monitor and a drawing monitor for my desktop, and it's really nice. But yeah, whether you do that or you have like an Intuos or a Bamboo, or one of your drawing tablets, depending on your needs, I definitely make sure you have one of those. Excuse me. I also know that Autodesk Sketchbook is available too, and it's free. So you can, and it has some nice perspective tools on it. So you can draw, like it gives you like some guides for drawing in perspective, which is a really fantastic tool also.
Okay.
You mentioned internships. And did you say she was a sophomore in college when the young
I don't
lady
know.
you referenced?
She might have been a junior. I do know that I think she was a junior because I think she was 20. And she, let's see, yeah, 20, almost 21, I think. And yeah, but she got an internship, and I don't know how things are now with COVID, right? I don't know. Like we did a couple, I think last year, or when she was on board, I think she was one of the first times that Blue Point decided to do internships. But they offer them. Other companies will do it. It just depends on when they're available, where you're looking for work. The type of, that's the other thing, right? The type of school you go to, depending on how good their program is, they can help, they might have access or knowledge of that, or have people that reach out to the school, or the school reaches out to different companies asking about internships. And that would be stuff that you probably wouldn't get if you were self-learning. So.
What does your daily schedule look like?
My daily schedule, it depends on the day because throughout the week, we have different meetings. So daily or every other day, I have to post work for art directors and everybody to look at, because essentially what happens is, so on Demon Souls, right? And I can show you, let's see. Give me 1 second here. If I can pull up. Okay, so. Oh, I guess I can't share. You're not letting me, Chuck.
Oh, well,
yeah.
let me figure that out.
It just says that the host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, try it now.
There we go. All right. So this is the body of work that I did for the game. Okay. So I did quite a few characters. I did a whole bunch of hairstyles. I did just a couple of head likenesses or head sculpts. You guys can see all this?
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. Okay. So I did, these two guys were some of the pieces that I did. And so on a project like this, and this is the way it was for most of the pieces, right, was that I would go into a meeting, and usually I knew what characters were kind of coming down the pipe. We have software that like Jira or ClickUp or something that is a task management software, and we can kind of see what tasks are coming our way next. So I would have this character coming up, and we'd have a kickoff meeting for it, and we'd sit down, and I would sit down with the art director and the modeling lead and maybe the concept artist. And we actually have people in the game company that we refer to as like lore keepers, nerd lore, or whatever you want to call them. But when Bluepoint does a game, we don't make a game from scratch. We make games that already existed and were already released. This game came out in 2009, I believe. So there's a whole bunch of lore and a whole bunch of, who these characters were and why they dressed this way and why this world was like this. And so the lore people would present us as all that information, so that when we go into building it, we have the concept art for the character. We have kind of the backstory of who this character was and why. And then we're given a time from our production manager saying, you have 7 weeks to complete this character. And then for us at Bluepoint, it's like, okay, this is the character I'm on. So this is what I'm doing for the next 7 weeks. And I go through the process of blocking in the character, doing everything very, very rough and sending it off to rigging and animation so that they can test the direction that we're taking it works. See if there's any foreseeable problems that maybe need to be adjusted before I get into too much of the detail. Once that has been approved, which that's usually not a long process, that's maybe like a couple of hours to like an afternoon wait. Then I get into kind of full detailing and some rough like blocking in of the game side. But usually it's 3 weeks of the super detailed stuff, and then a couple weeks of we call it UV mapping, but you could also refer to it as like pelting an animal, right? So pelting like an animal skin, splitting up 3D models to lay them flat so that you can apply 2-dimensional images to a 3-dimensional surface properly, right? Putting textures on it. And then get into transferring all of my detail from the high poly model to the low poly, adding textures and then outputting it so that the final model can go in game. And then it usually is about a week, maybe a couple days before we start seeing that character in game, and we can kind of evaluate and see if things need to be changed. And then, if you're doing like a character likeness or hair, that adds more time too. So my day-to-day schedule is usually broken up into this is the project or the piece that I'm working on. And so this is what I'm working on until I finish this piece. And my day-to-day is just working on that model. So sometimes I'll have meetings to just talk about my progress, or showing progress, or having art direction meetings. Sometimes we will have team meetings, and they'll show us new art elements that are being designed for the game, and kicking that stuff all off. But yeah, my day-to-day is spent more focusing on the long term for a piece, and not that it varies day to day for different things. So
That's pretty cool.
So, did you say these are just some of the characters you did, or
no, this is all that I did for the game. So,
okay.
If I go through it, so this character, she was originally supposed to be mine, but I was giving 2 characters that were due at the same time. So they decided to give her to somebody else for pre-production. And then they gave me somebody else. When we got her back, she wasn't exactly where we needed her. And they did a great job on it, but we had art direction changes and fixes and things that need to be fixed for how rigging and animation worked. And so there were things that just weren't okay. And so I had to go through, and I basically had to recreate like 80-90% of her. And she is a very iconic character to the game franchise. And so we had to be very careful with how we worked with her. But I did hair, clothes, all the skin and texturing, for her. But I didn't start from scratch, right? Like I had a base to start from, and then a lot of elements had to be completely replaced, but there was already kind of a foundation to work with. This one was mine start to finish. In a lot of cases, concept art comes to us and it's like, hey, this is it. But sometimes they give us concept art that is really flushed out and it's like, this is what we're going with. And there's some that's a little bit more rough and room to be interpreted, and we can kind of take it in another direction as long as the team is okay with it and art direction thinks it's fine. And so I'd have to get approval along the way. But this is what we started with. So this is what the original model looked like from the 2009 game. This was ours. All right. And then this is what I finished with. And so that's how he turned out. It's fun. The bell was a lot of fun. I actually have like a 3D printed model of the bell. But that was a cool little piece. This guy was not one of my favorites at the beginning, but turned into one of my favorites. Just a lot of fat and flabby forms were a lot of fun. I'm a big anatomy nerd. But the concept art for him was really nice. Like it was really kind of creepy and gross and stuff. And so, and then some of these, like this one right here, right? I did the hat. All right. So this giant cloth fold is a wearable piece in the game that you do something and you get rewarded with this hat. And so this is what I had to sculpt for that. So that was a lot of fun. Something very different. And then, so like her, all I did was the face, right? So I was tasked with like doing a likeness for her, or not a likeness, but a better face. And then down here, the game has a character creator at the very beginning where you can kind of go in and build your own game. And I did a bunch of the hairstyles for the game. So I got to go in and, they gave me the styles and kind of roughly what they wanted. And I kind of groomed a lot of them out for us.
Were you familiar with this game before you took on this project?
No. And I'm, a fairly conservative, high moral and, religious gentleman. And it was difficult for me, right? When I'm seeing stuff like this, that's like these, the game is called Demon's Souls. And I'm seeing stuff like this. I'm not sure if I have the original of this guy. I don't have the original work for this guy, but when I went into Bluepoint for my interview, the original character of this guy is the first artwork I saw from the game. And so I saw this character with this giant bloody axe and blood all over him and stuff. And I'm like, is this the right move for me? But it turned out to be exactly the right move. And it was so much fun to work on it. So proud of our team and the stuff that we got to do. But yeah, so yeah, long story short, that's kind of like what my days kind of go into and how things work out for me. But yeah, these were all the pieces that I did. I did 9 characters. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so I did these 8. So these 6, 7 him, 8 him, from scratch. Right, they were mine. Well, this one I guess I kind of from scratch, kind of not. And then this one was head and hair, and then I did some body texturing. This one was a head. This one was a head. This one was a head. So I guess I did like some of the hands and like some anatomy stuff fixes on this one, but yeah, and then a hat and some hair.
Have you actually taken anatomy classes?
So what
as part
exactly?
of your? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Courtney.
I just want to know what you. Okay, sorry, my internet. What did you enjoy most in this career?
What do I enjoy most? To me, it's the art, right? I'm a perpetual learner, right? So my favorite piece that I've worked on is the next one that I'm working on, right? It's every piece I'm working on. There's always something I'm learning, always something I'm improving, and so the next piece I'm doing is my favorite one because I get to apply that new knowledge and the new kind of refinement of my craft to the next piece that I maybe missed some things on the last one, right? So I think that's my favorite and not to say that I'm a great artist, but at a lot of my old companies in Wichita and Kansas City, I was the only specialist in like 3D and in character. And so there was nobody else to really push me and drive me creatively or to help fix me on some things. And so to finally be at another company where I have a lot to learn from other people that are really good, that is probably one of my favorite things.
Is there some project? You said you're in your dream job. Is there a dream project for you?
No, there's really not. So for Blue Point and the game that we're working on, like I'm looking forward to whatever, to our next title, and whatever the next title after that is, right? They always kind of surprise us with like cool and fun things to work on, and they're building something amazing. And so I'm really excited to see like how the company like grows and expands into like, and the types, and those games that I'm not a huge gamer, right? To me, am I going to sit around playing other people's artwork or am I going to do my own? Well, I'm going to do my own, right? I can justify being away from my family if I'm learning and improving and getting a better job or freelance or something to support my family, and not if I'm off in the other room playing, Metal Gear or Call of Duty or something for 6 hours. I just can't justify that. And so, yeah, always looking forward to like what the next projects are. But I don't have a dream one. I am working on my own. I've also started my own game studio that I'm working on with actually they don't all live in Wichita, but they are all from the Wichita area. And we're building a VR game, hopefully out here this fall. And that's been a fun project so far. So that's kind of an enjoyable experience, getting to kind of lead that team.
What's the VR game about?
So let's see. I think I've posted some of it. Yeah, so here's a couple of the characters that, these are all pieces that I did. And we have a concept artist in Wichita that she's doing some illustrations for me now. Like, she just came on, and so she's doing this. She's a sophomore at Wichita State. But it is a tower defense game, right? Where you are a kid with a slingshot trying to defend your tree fort from an alien invasion. So it's like a slingshot, like you get like fun slingshots and fun different projectiles and stuff. So it's a fun little game. But I'm looking forward to. We've got a website that is hopefully going to launch here soon, and for both the company and the video game. But the company I developed as an LLC a couple of weeks ago, so that's official. But yeah,
Cool. This one doesn't look quite as scary as Demon's Souls.
no, this one. So this one's for my girls. I have
That's
3
cool.
kids. I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and then a newborn baby boy. Well, I say newborn. He was newborn with COVID, so he's almost a year now. But I play a lot of VR. I play a lot of Oculus if I have time to, if I have time to play video games, I can do that. And my girls love to play the Oculus too. And so it really came to, they couldn't find games to play, and any kids games I found also required a bunch of reading, or you can like link the Oculus to your phone so I can see what they're doing on my phone. And so if they need help, I can help them. But there wasn't any real fun games for them that didn't require a lot of me being involved, trying to help picking them up to reach something or to read something for them or telling them which button to press. And so I wanted a game that my girls could just get in and play and have fun on, and they didn't need adult supervision to play it. And they didn't, have to be reading or, having to rely on an adult to really do a lot of the pointing and clicking for them.
I think that's pretty cool.
Any other questions, Courtney?
Oh, no, I'm just making conversation. But I also have the Oculus, and I play it sometimes here and there. I like to share with my friends because it's just so funny. I love watching them struggling, trying to understand it all. But
we had a family friend get hurt. Chuck, did you know Scott Connor?
Scott Connor. The name's real familiar. I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Yeah, he went to Augusta, but him and his wife, not this Christmas, but the year before for Christmas, they were over at our house, and we got the Oculus Quest, and his wife was playing, and she was playing like a tennis game, and she went running for a ball, and she ran into a fireplace. She ran into the mantle head first, and it bounced off it hit her head, and she had to get staples, and her leg went into the hearth and had to get stitches, and it was a bad deal. It was a really bad deal, but she laughed it off, and I saw videos of her kid on VR like over the holidays or something. So it didn't it didn't scare her away from it, but it was the weirdest experience I've had, working with somebody on it, that they actually are so into it that they just take off.
Wow.
But,
anything else, Courtney?
I just want to bring up, I am a gamer, and I was so into Call of Duty, and then when I did CAD, I actually designed the ray gun Mark 1, and 2, but I changed the second one a little bit. I actually have the 3D model, but
Oh, cool.
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
We have a 3D printer at our school, but it's not very big. But
Mhm.
yeah, that's what I first started with, and then I just started making my own designs from there. But I
Very
think,
cool.
to be honest, I don't really like the 3D part of it. I just think it's cool that how it's designed in 3D and you can print it and it's reality. But I think I'd rather be creative and come up with my own characters and stuff.
Well, so our artist, right? She, like I said, she's a sophomore and is doing this kind of stuff for us. And she's extremely talented. I think she went to what is that private school? Bishop Carroll. I think she went to Bishop Carroll.
Okay.
And but she does, I will give her specs for a character, right? Like I will tell her kind of what I'm looking for, what I need, and then she will come back with the designs and we will kind of bounce ideas off of each other. But you have to get used to presenting character model sheets, right? Stuff like this. You have to get used to. So right now I'm teaching it's kind of a character drawing and illustration class for like kind of for 3D, right? Like if you want to be it's teaching, it's kind of basic illustration. So it's anatomy, volumes, proportions, all of that stuff. And then kind of going through the process of like how you would create elements for a game. Like you come up with an idea for the game and then we go through kind of like creating the different elements for it. And I talk to the students about, what kind of platform is this for? What kind of, what are our restrictions for stuff like this? Because if you're designing for, you can design, and design is a lot of fun, but it's like, okay, if I'm designing a game for mobile device, or if I'm designing a character for a next gen game, what your character can look like in the final is very, very different, right?
Yeah.
And so knowing like considering like the technical limitations of the platform that you're designing for is a big deal, a big thing to consider. So let's see, where is it? One second. So let's see if I can find this real quick. Oh, here we go. So she designed this guy for me. So I had a character that I think I showed you a little bit ago that was, where'd it go? So I designed a lot of these characters a long time ago. And this is the first one that I did. All right, the very first character that I kind of designed for this project. Then I did some of the others and I realized, oh, the eye is too small and mean compared to like, when you look at this character, right? Just bigger eyes, a little bit more, even though they're bad, they're a little bit more on the innocent side, right? So I went in and kind of made the eye bigger. But the more I went into designing the other characters, right? So we have like our spaceship here, and we have like these guys, right? That they read very well, and they read well in our game, right? Like you can definitely tell what character this is off in the distance, right? So they're all very, very different. But if we look at this guy, right, in game, he doesn't read very well. And we actually have like a different version of him. So in the game, you shoot this guy, and when he dies, he actually pops, and a couple of these littler ones like come up from him, and they kind of scatter and they run. And they read very well in game, but that first one didn't. And so, when I was bringing her on, I was like, okay, I was going to do a test with her, and like, okay, so for part of your test is, here's the original design, but it doesn't read well. So redesign me a character that's the same kind of blobby character, but reads well. All right. So she designed me this, and we kind of went through a couple of iterations on that. And I just finished the 3D model. I think it was like last week or something. And we got this. So we have this fun little game character from her concept design. And so as a illustrator, that is your job, right? Is presenting, you need to know, you don't have to know anatomy unless you're going like real anatomy, unless you're going into more realistic characters. If you're staying on the stylized side of characters, then, really good line work, really good weight, good understanding of color, right? Because you're also going to be, with these characters, she's also kind of putting together, a color palette for me. So some of my characters already had color on them, but I asked her to, and this isn't a final, right? So she's going to go in and tweak the colors and create better separation and good read. But she's basically also kind of coloring our game for us, right? And so that has to be something that is very important too. Now there are concept artists that just do people, or just do clothing sets, or just do weapons, or creatures, or the cartoony stuff, right? So you kind of have to find your niche, find those forms and designs that really appeal to you, and really kind of like push and focusing on that. I mean, it never hurts to like branch out and grow in other areas, but those other areas are strengthening your core direction, I guess I would say, your core path.
Wow. Well, that's all very impressive stuff. I can barely draw stick figures, so I'm very impressed with anyone who can do more than that, which is, a lot of people, but you're obviously like upper level talent. And Ryan, we really appreciate your taking time on a Saturday night
Oh, absolutely,
to visit with us. And Courtney, we want to keep in touch with you as you decide what career path you're going to pursue, and whether it's animation or art or something totally different. Who knows? We're excited about your future. And Ryan, your email has been on the screen, so I don't know if we have other students that are interested, if you even have time to answer any of those email, or if we need to block that so you don't, or just tell people that they can go through us or whatever. So let us know if
yeah, I always try to make myself available to students. If people if people are looking to learn, if people are wanting help with the direction, I'm always open for helping with that. I would kind of like to go through you, just so that I keep all of that stuff organized in my life and make sure that I'm not just getting, a bunch of emails from random people about random topics. If we can organize, and maybe it comes to just doing another one of these sit downs where I can just answer a whole bunch of, questions online, so that people can kind of go through and see, do other one-on-one with students like this if we need to. But I'm always,
sounds good.
I'm always open and eager to talking and helping students, talking with and helping students.
Great. Well, thank you. Yeah. Courtney,
Yeah,
any
absolutely.
final thoughts or questions?
I just want to say thank you for this opportunity again, for getting to meet you and know more about behind the scenes of developing video games. I think it's really interesting
Sure.
and
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right. And with that, Enjoy your coffee.